as Bangladesh urges India to extradite Sheikh Hasina. There is another challenge for India's security concerns in the region, and that is the cozying up of Pakistan to Bangladesh. In fact, Pakistan's army is set to return to Bangladesh after more than 5 decades. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo Story. What is actually happening between Pakistan and Bangladesh? In the month that India has commemorated Vijay Diwas and the birth of Bangladesh with India's brave army, and this is the iconic photo of the surrender of the Pakistanis from 1971, we actually see new aggression and new tension between India and Bangladesh. The Yunus government is asking the Modi government to hand over or send back home Sheikh Hasina. Remember, Sheikh Hasina, the ousted leader of Bangladesh, has been in Delhi ever since her government was ousted. Bangladesh sees this as a red flag. While no timeline has been set, today the ante was further upped with the Yunus government saying that if India did not act in a stipulated period of time, they didn't define how many days or weeks that might be, then Bangladesh will have to respond accordingly. In the meantime, the curious turn of events is this. Shehbaz Sharif of Pakistan has met with Mohd Yunus of Bangladesh, and the Pakistan army will be in Bangladesh as a defense pact emerges and Bangladesh turns to Pakistan for the import of ammunition and other military requirements. Should India send Sheikh Hasina back home? That's the question on the program today. Let me welcome our guests on the program. Very distinguished panel. Ambassador Veena Sikri is with us, veteran diplomat. Welcome, ma'am, to the program. Gen Ata Hasnain, military veteran, is with us. Welcome, sir. Always a pleasure. And for the Bangladeshi perspective, we're joined political analyst and academic, Dr. Mubashar Hassan. Welcome, Dr. Hassan. Welcome back to the program. Welcome, everybody. I want to start with you, Ambassador Sikri. Two developments here. One, Bangladesh saying, you shouldn't be giving a safe haven to Sheikh Hasina. Two, Pakistan cozying up to Bangladesh, Bangladesh turning to Pakistan for its military requirements. The Pakistan army set to come back to Bangladesh after 53 years. All of this in the month of December when the 1971 Vijay Diwas is being commemorated by India. A big irony there. How do you see these developments?
To take the first question on the extradition request, I think first of all, we must understand that the extradition process is a highly complex legal and judicial process. This is not a process that can be done through a diplomatic note verbal. I mean, it is almost laughable the way the government of Bangladesh has sent a diplomatic note verbal and said, please extradite her back to India. That's it. Because actually, first and foremost, there has to be the trial of the individual. If you've been charged with certain crimes, and I think Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has been charged with murder, enforced disappearances, and all kinds of other crimes. But there has been no court case. There has been no evidence proved. And in fact, even the talk of people having died in July and August, the UNHCR team is supposed to have visited Bangladesh twice in order to collect evidence, in order to give a report on whether people have died at that time, how did they die, how many died, etc. And even on their second visit, they have said we have not been given any evidence. No state, no district authority or the state authority, nobody's giving them any evidence. So obviously this is a very preliminary kind of a situation, and allegations of murder have been bandied around, not only with Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, but with a whole lot of journalists and a whole lot of Awami League leaders and others. So I think that even after there is a due process in Bangladesh and there is a decision by a legally appointed court, then it comes to India. India looks at it together with letters rogatory, and then there could be a legal judicial process in India as well, because the extradition treaty after all is between two governments. And then there was this very peculiar clause in that diplomatic note verbal, I understand we talked about, we have a prisoners exchange agreement, so under this she can be sent back. But Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is not a prisoner. She's here of her own free will. So all these situations make one think, and then the additional pressure after 2 days, do it quickly, otherwise we'll take other action. So this is a kind of fake pressure being built up for domestic consumption, to tell the people of Bangladesh that, look, this is India not listening to us. So this is fanning the anti-India sentiment that has been built up so drastically in the last few months, and I would say even going up to a year or so. So I think that one has to look at this very, very carefully to see that this should not extradition treaties, extradition arrangements are not supposed to be bandied about like this. I think they should be treated much more seriously and given the due seriousness it deserves. And it should not be used for their own domestic political purposes, particularly by a government which is not even legally constituted. It's not even a government, it's a regime or an administration which has installed itself after a coup against former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. And certainly one can see who was behind that coup, because when you talked about Pakistan Bangladesh relations, that's the only thing that's on the uptick in the last 4 months. Because certainly I think the visual you're showing of students, it was not a student uprising at all. There is just a fake nomenclature being given. You know, somebody's talking about Arab Spring and so on. It was nothing like that. It was just a student's name is being given to a arrangement which was actually done by the Jamaat Islami with the support of Pakistan. And now you
But
find, yes.
yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, sorry. May I just ask you that, irrespective of the Indian perspective on the Yunus government, whether it is legitimate, whether it is anything more than an administration, Indian concerns over the rights of minorities, can India afford to take a side? And does the continued continued presence of Sheikh Hasina in India give Bangladesh an excuse to say you have taken a side in our domestic dispute?
No, I don't think so at all. First of all, let us understand that where is the question of taking sides? I am not one of those who agrees with the theory that putting all your eggs in one basket or putting all your eggs in the Sheikh Hasina basket. She was the elected leader in 2009. I'm not talking of her first term as prime minister, which was, between 96 and 2001. But I'm talking of the second term onward, the last 15 years, 2009, 2024. In 2009, she was elected with an overwhelming majority by an election conducted under the auspices of the army. So I think at that time, there was absolutely nobody anywhere across the world who called that election wrong or incorrect. And she got a two-thirds majority. India deals with the government who's elected. Even with this government, we said, even on the 8th of August, when they were sworn in under the constitution, which all, by the way, does not allow for an interim government. Even then, we said, we will deal with you. We're prepared to deal with you. We want good relations with Bangladesh to continue. And this is absolutely correct. We do want good relations with Bangladesh to continue. But the point is, you can't do it by fanning anti-India hatred across the border and blaming everything on India. We had good relations definitely with under Sheikh Hasina because we found a mutually beneficial way. All security issues were looked at, trade issues were solved, maritime boundary, land boundary, construction of infrastructure. All those issues were amicably going along very well. And we said clearly to the new regime that we are prepared to continue all this with you. But there is no evidence of any response from them on this side. So I don't think that you can look at the fact that Sheikh Hasina is here in India as a matter that is, irking anybody in Bangladesh. The people are more and more saying it was better earlier. Aage bhalo chilo, they're saying in Bangladesh. They're not talking about, what is happening now. The high prices, inflation, losing jobs, industry, complete law and order breakdown, attacks on minorities. You saw this open letter we wrote to the people of Bangladesh, where we said in India, even citizens for fraternity, all the group which is led by leading Muslim intellectuals of India, they have written an open letter to Professor Mohd Yunus saying, we as Indian Muslims are ashamed of the attacks on minorities in Bangladesh. This is against the tenets of Islam. So I think this is
Yeah.
what is a uniform opinion in India.
Yeah. So this is very interesting, and we actually have a poll running. We'll give you the outcome of it very soon. Should India extradite Sheikh Hasina? And those numbers will be interesting, especially in line with what Ambassador Sikri has just said. But General Hasnain, there is a tricky question here, and the tricky question is this: apart from not putting all your eggs in one basket, and Ambassador Sikri is a veteran diplomat, and she knows that no smart diplomat, no smart nation state ever does that. There is the Pakistan factor. And there is the Pakistan factor that we're talking about in December, when we have just commemorated the 1971, the victory, the birth of Bangladesh, and the surrender of Pakistani troops as Bangladesh was birthed. My question is, when we look at the fact that Pakistan is taking advantage of this friction between India and Bangladesh to make a move. There's the Pakistan-Bangladesh Defense Pact. Bangladesh is turning to Pakistan for military needs. The Pakistan army is set to visit Bangladesh after a gap of 53 years. How concerned are you? How concerned should we be? And should that change our opinion on whether we continue to allow Sheikh Hasina to stay in India or not?
Thank you, Barkha. Thank you, first of all, for inviting me for this very important program of yours. And as to Ambassador Veena Sikri's intervention, may I start by saying I agree with everything she has said. Okay. But coming to the Pakistan factor, and that's a very important aspect. First of all, a lot of people think that Pakistan got detached from Bangladesh on 16th of December 1971. To my mind, that never ever happened. There was a deep interest that Pakistan always had in Bangladesh. They knew that there was an intrinsic relationship in the past, that there was a temporary kind of a cleavage which happened, and they bided their time for so many years, and they knew that in their geostrategic, geopolitical interest, they needed to cultivate Bangladesh because of India's vulnerable northeast, eastern flank. And they have bided their time, awaited the opportunities, and this is the opportunity that they have got. Now, as to your specific question, as to whether this should pressurize us in any way in trying to extradite Sheikh Hasina, my immediate response, which now and forever will be, no question. There is no question of extraditing her. We are very deeply, as a nation, connected to the Mujib family. And not only the Mujib family, we are connected to Bangladesh through the Mujib family of that time. I agree that nations always play to their interests. I think you take it up to a point, but we always continue to respect the relationship we established with Sheikh Mujib and his family. And therefore, she has come to us at such a time. There is a government in place in Bangladesh, no doubt. It's not a democratically elected government. We will see the day when it gets democratically elected and what the approach and attitude of it is. At the moment, all the demands that they are making on us are not legal at all, as already brought out by Ambassador Veena. So, to that extent, I would say our stand has to be absolutely unequivocal. At this time, we look at the emerging threats of this connivance which is taking place from Pakistan, the ISI probably, and Bangladesh's whatever organizations that are there. There is a lot happening in Bangladesh. There's so much under the covers which is there. We are all aware of all these years, the kind of radical efforts which have gone on there to try and cultivate the Jamaat-e-Islami and
but
other
General
parties.
Hasnain, if I may just step in, you say there's no question of extraditing Sheikh Hasina, but should there be a suggestion to Sheikh Hasina that go somewhere else?
That can always be an option. There can always be an option, but her personal safety and the safety of her family must be ensured. We must have some kind of an agreement and an acceptance with whichever government with whom we negotiate this, with whoever she negotiates this. But I think the emotive linkages that India has got to her family are very, very strong. I do agree national interest overrides everything. But here, I think our national interest takes in both, keeping her with us and having a good relationship with Bangladesh. And I think it's too early for us to say that it's either way, either this or that. No, that's too early for us to say at this moment.
Yeah. So I think both of you have been very clear in laying out the Indian perspective there, that there's no question of an extradition. Dr. Mubashar Hassan, what I want to understand from you is, given that this is likely to very much be the official position as well, and both General Hasnain and Ambassador Sikri speak with decades of experience from inside government, what happens now? What happens now, and how do Indians, you see Indians looking on at this, looking on at Shehbaz Sharif with Mohd Yunus, the Bangladesh turning to the Pakistan army for its military needs. This is going to only harden positions in India at a time when there is a perception that religious minorities are not safe, Hindus are under attack. Now Bangladesh and Pakistan are cozying up to each other. So, what can Bangladesh do, quite bluntly, if India does not extradite Sheikh Hasina? And I don't think that's going to happen. And if India doesn't even ask Hasina to go elsewhere.
I mean, thank you, Barkha, for inviting me, and thank you for making me part of this esteemed panel. I would, before answering your question, I would start with that, the Economist magazine, the
Hmm.
world famous economic magazine made
Called
Bangladesh
Bangladesh the country of the year.
country of the year. So there is
Yeah.
obviously a perception,
Hmm.
there is a perception in certain quarter of India, perhaps, or there is a global perception of Bangladesh at the moment. So with that,
Right.
also want to say that I think Indian current government is more prudent. At least that is what I'm seeing. The Indian Foreign Secretary was in Bangladesh. He made a prompt visit to Bangladesh against the backdrop of the attack
Yeah.
on Bangladeshi Deputy High Commission in Agartala. So I think that is from my I'm an outsider, not the insider of our two panelists, but it
Yeah.
seems to me there is a sense of pragmatism in Indian side as well, and foreign policy should be about rationality rather than emotion. That's what because I'm a student of international relations. I taught international relations and politics in university, so I think being emotively connected to one family which is hugely unpopular to the
Hmm.
vast number of Bangladeshi youths would not bear a good outcome for Indian official foreign policy establishment. That's number one, and I think Indian government understands it. That's my point of view. Number two is about the relationship between Pakistan and Bangladesh. I think from the policies of foreign policy theories and other ways, we could see that it is a balancing act. It is a balancing act of a nation, but I don't think there is any probability for Yunus government to be hostile to India. Uh, the fact says otherwise. If we remember, Dr. Yunus actually wanted to have a meet with Modi government in the sideline of UN General Assembly in New York.
Yeah.
Uh, it didn't happen. So, and now coming back to your question, when you say what Bangladesh could do if India doesn't, I mean, I don't think it could do anything apart from there would be more sort of public, uh, sort of public criticism and outcry of this matter. But I also wanted to underpin that আগেই ভালো ছিল. Madam Veena Sikri said that people are saying
Hmm.
that people are better before. I would kindly request that that is a slogan that is being promoted in social media through a particular party line rather than general people. We are talking about a regime which institutionalized illegal secret prison across the
Hmm.
Bangladesh and kill Bangladeshi citizens extrajudicially, killing over 3,500 number of
Yeah.
people. I'm not sure why people would argue that agei bhalo chilo. If that is the case, then eventually people would decide. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
Let,
thank
let me you've made a couple of interesting points, and I want to take them back to Ambassador Sikri. One is that India will be pragmatic. The foreign secretary has initiated that process, Ambassador Sikri, and that is of course true. You've already said that you're not a great believer of putting eggs in one basket. Uh, I'm more intrigued by the third possibility. Is there a possibility that Hasina will be told politely, softly, gently to go elsewhere? Or do you think that India will stand with Sheikh Hasina for as long as it takes, as long as needed?
Well, let me say one thing that I do not think Indian foreign policy will ever act under pressure. So if this business of sending a note verbal every 48 hours to India
Yeah,
is meaning to put pressure on India and under threat of an anti-India feeling in Bangladesh increasing, I do not think India is going to give in to this kind of
yeah,
pressure. And I may say, right and fair and foremost, that yes, India's policy is very pragmatic. We do deal with elected governments, and that is why we told the Bangladesh government when the regime change took place on the 8th of August that we are prepared to deal with you. But we do know that despite the fact that the Yunus administration made no effort whatsoever to show any interest in developing relations with India, there will be no visit from their side at all, either by Mohd Yunus or by the Foreign Affairs Advisor or by anybody else at all. A meeting on the sideline of the UNGA one doesn't count at all. Still, our Foreign Secretary went there. A very important
Hmm.
display of pragmatism and a positive approach, and we're prepared to understand you and we're prepared to deal with you. But we have to see the three words he used after the conversation. He said, my
Hmm.
discussions were frank, candid, and constructive. I think he was very clear on what he was saying, and there have been reports afterwards in the media saying that we have said very clearly to the Yunus government that we are going to deal only with an elected government. How does this
Hmm.
government call itself representative of the people? How? Why are you saying that Age Bhalo Chilo is wrong? Are these students you're showing on the screen? Who are they? Are they representing anybody at all? It's just the Jamaat Islami and the Shivir who is there. You cannot expect that, an illegal imposed administration or regime is now going to be treated as a legal government of the country. I think you should notice that Jake Sullivan, when he called Mohammed Yunus a couple of days ago, the three words he used for the administration that they want in Bangladesh, he said, we want stability, prosperity, and democracy. Neither of these three conditions exist in Bangladesh today. There is no stability, there is no law and order. The army has been given police powers and magistracy powers.
Hmm.
Still, there is no control. Policemen have been killed in the scores, and there is no accountability for that. Police thanas have been burnt and weapons have been looted in the thousands, tens of thousands. There is no accountability for that. How do you call this a regime? And there is no prosperity? The economy is going downhill. Under 15 years of cooperation, we have 6 to 8% growth in Bangladesh, mutually beneficial. Now it's the other way around. Democracy, is this democracy? And the regime is saying that we
But
want.
let me be contrarian here. I hear you, I agree with you, but let me be contrarian here. Is it our job or is it in our interest to worry about Bangladesh's internal democracy? I understand taking a position on the rights of minorities. I understand guarding our strategic interests, but we have re-engaged, for instance, with the Taliban in Afghanistan. We have done it. Eventually, we are slowly engaging with the Taliban-led regime in Afghanistan. Some might say it's not our problem whether Bangladesh is a democracy or not.
Look, it's very clear. We did say on the very first day, I've said it last time and I'm saying it now again, on the 8th of August, this is exactly what we said to the government of Bangladesh, the regime change, the new regime in place, and said, yes, we are prepared to deal with you. We want to continue the good relations we have with the people of Bangladesh. It is a people to people bond after all. Now, do you think that when the people are showing so much distress in Bangladesh, do you think this is a regime that they want? And what will the people of Bangladesh say to India if we say, oh, this regime is doing fine and everything is great in Bangladesh? And that none of all this stuff that you're showing on the screen is true. We think you're doing great
Yeah.
and we're going to deal with the government. So, Barkha, we have had a very strong people to people led relationship. Now, the people of Bangladesh, I know they are being turned against India. There's an anti India, absolutely voracious campaign of every kind, but still we
Yeah.
are wanting to keep up with the interests of the people of Bangladesh. And I do not think this is it. I mean, there are other parties. Everybody is telling Mohammed Yunus in Bangladesh. I'm not talking of outsiders. I'm not talking of Jake Sullivan now. The political parties of Bangladesh are saying this to Mohammed Yunus. Elections first. The reforms are to be done only by an elected government. This is business of a handful of people, some Jamaat Islami leaders, some Hizb ut-Tahrir leaders, all the Islamist organizations you can imagine. Hifazat Islam, Islami Andolan Bangladesh. Oh, we
Hmm.
want constitutional reforms first. Scrap this constitution, scrap Mujibur Rahman, scrap everything. We want something else. We don't want secularism. Forget about the minorities. They're not our responsibility. I mean, do you think we can just accept anything like this? And you think the people of Bangladesh? No, everybody, all the political parties, BNP saying elections first. Tariq Rahman sitting in London, elections as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Now, then look at the minorities itself. For months, there was criticism in the Bangladesh media by the best paper saying, oh, the Indian media is doing all this propaganda about attacks on
Hmm.
minorities. Nothing is happening. It's all peaceful. It's calm. Come and see. Come and see. The day after Vikram Mishri visit, the government suddenly they discovered, oh, there have been 88 cases, and 70 have been arrested so far. I mean, just look at that. Do you
Yeah.
call this realistic? I think, Barkha, even when you spoke about Taliban and Afghanistan, of course, we are prepared to deal with them. We're talking to them. Humanitarian aid
Yeah.
is going. But look at their response. It's a sensible response from their side, and they are, we are putting pressure on them. We are very all concerned about the treatment of women in Afghanistan, the role that they have. But we are putting pressure on them, and hopefully, we do hope there will be a change. But in Bangladesh, it's complete mayhem. And look at this, Barkha. Bangladesh is a neighbor with whom we have the longest possible border, more than 4,000 kilometers of border. And the chances of a spillover of any kind of attacks on minorities, attacks on Buddhists, attacks on Christians, weak economy,
Yeah.
people not getting jobs, people are rushing over into our side. Look at the law and order impact on India. How can we just sit
No.
back and do nothing? I think this is
I, I, I,
unreal.
I and I think the last point is a critically important point, General Hassan, that the border, it is critical. But equally, you said that Pakistan had never detached itself from Bangladesh. Pakistan, maybe Bangladesh remains the deep injury, the unhealed wound, when it comes to the very creation of Bangladesh. But history can't be revised to this degree, right? And I think Dr. Mubashar says this is the balancing act. Bangladesh is being practical. India should also be practical. Now, Hasina made a speech, her first public speech. It was virtual, but it was while she was in India. And she accused the Yunus government of genocide, right? Now, Bangladesh will turn around, I guess, and say, look, India is allowing her to attack our government from Indian soil. To which Ambassador Sikri will say, how is this your government? How is this a representative government? What is our balancing act? If Bangladesh is balancing by kind of giving, one hand out in polite friendship to India, but also simultaneously saying, hand us Hasina with the other hand, but hugging Shehbaz Sharif in Cairo, how should India respond?
Exactly. That's a load full of questions, Barkha, no doubt.
Yeah.
But let me start by saying I'm reminded of the very famous place, the Kaman Aman Setu at the line of control between India and Pakistan, where when we were opening the Muzaffarabad road, there was a huge hoarding which was put up by Pakistan. The border hoarding just said, it was a message coming out to all people coming from Kashmir and visiting Muzaffarabad. The message said, Pakistan se rishta kya? La ilaha illallah. Which meant your relationship with Pakistan is what? It is all Islam. Nothing else. Is this the message that Pakistan is now giving to Bangladesh? That's the message. This is what we have to be concerned about, right? Because we know Pakistan is the bedrock of radicalism, of Islamism. Being recognized internationally by the international community, even by most of the Islamic countries. Out of the 57 countries of the OIC, most will pragmatically recognize that this is the core center from where most of the issues arise. Right. Today, as we talk today, there are 2.6 million refugees sitting, IDPs sitting from the floods of the last 2 years in various camps. People who can be influenced overnight. Right. No, this is the golden opportunity that Pakistan is seeking. The ISI is seeking. This is what they attempted to do in Kashmir way back in 1989-90. This is what they're looking at now to go back against India once again when an opportunity is presenting itself to them. So this is one angle that we have to be extremely careful about. And we have to play this out to Pakistan, to Bangladesh, and tell them very clearly, this is not the kind of interest, it's not in the interest of India-Bangladesh relations of the future. It's not that we fear anything from Bangladesh as such, but we do fear this aspect of the rise of this Islamism within Bangladesh, which can lead to the kind of ramifications which Ambassador Veena Sikri just spoke about, the spillover. 18 million Hindus in Bangladesh, a 4,000-kilometer border, and a region connected by a sliver of territory, which is the Siliguri corridor. I mean, we've got our security concerns, all of them. So my last point on this is, when we look at Mohd Yunus, my perception of Mohd Yunus was that, my God, here is a banker who should be a highly educated economist And highly educated economists, I consider, would be people who would be secularists, who would be looking at, middle path kind of attitudes and ideologies. But here is a figure which is emerging like an ogre almost, supporting all this, what is happening, and acting as a mouthpiece of that entire thing which is happening inside Bangladesh. I wish we could find someone who could be, not really a counter to that, but Mohd Yunus is there to stay for quite some time. There's no doubt about it. But hopefully, he will not allow himself to become, the mouthpiece of Islamists from all over the world who are looking at India and trying to counter issues which are happening within India and within Bangladesh or places like that. So this is my major concern at the moment. This whole issue of the rising tide of ideological cooperation which may be happening between Pakistan and Bangladesh under the shadows, while we are hearing about arms consignments and ammunition, etc. Things like this may continue, but the more dangerous thing is the ideological part.
Yeah. Before I give Ambassador Sikri the last word, Dr. Hassan, what might, and I know you don't speak for the government, but as someone who has spent a lot of time just researching your own country on the ground, and you have some distance because you live outside of Bangladesh, what might happen next, according to you? Is Islamism, the rise of Islamism, a genuine concern? Is this cozying up that you call a balancing act between Pakistan and Bangladesh dangerous for Bangladesh society? Because, there was a time when the comparison between Bangladesh and Pakistan used to be precisely in those terms, that look, Bangladesh has managed to more or less fend off radicalism, do well on socio-economic indices. Look how much better it's done than Pakistan. And now General Hasnain is saying that Pakistan has an interest in pulling Bangladesh down into its own morass.
Thank you, Barkha. So just for the context of the audience, I wrote, my PhD is on Islam and politics in Bangladesh, and I wrote a book on Islam and politics in Bangladesh that is available in Palgrave Macmillan. So I do understand the terrains of religious politics and Islamism. So few points about that. One, there is no one Islamism in the country. There is a lot of diversity within this religious political terrain. Some tend to use democracy, some tend to reject democracy, and those sort of stuff. And I think there is some sort of way works in other countries where religion is a strong force. Second is, I do not think Yunus has, or any Bangladesh government should even think of aligning and forming an ideological alliance with Pakistan in line with religion. I don't think it will bring any good to Bangladesh. I don't think it will bring any good even to the region, and I don't think it will be a sustainable option to operate within a greatly connected world. Third point is, I think we need to be, at least from my perspective, we need to be a bit fairer on Yunus. I'm not defending him. I think what he has done is he himself is a big deterrence, acted as a big deterrence. So number one, because of him, army didn't take over. Number two, because of him, there was no internal fighting across various factions in the country. And finally, I do agree with Ambassador Veena Sikri that there should be an election sooner rather than later. As soon as there is a political authority takes over, things should be much more stable. That is my summarization. Thank you.
But do you agree with Ambassador Sikri and General Hasnain that India cannot yet treat the Yunus government as a representative government?
No, I disagree with them respectfully, and I think Indian government. If it was Indian government doesn't consider Bangladesh is a legitimate representative of the government, then why would the Foreign Secretary of India made a visit to Bangladesh? Yeah.
Okay, that's an interesting point. Why did the Foreign Secretary visit if it's not a representative government? Ambassador Sikri, General Hasnain, before you come in with last comments, we did ask our viewers, do you believe the Modi government should ask Sheikh Hasina to go away? go back to Bangladesh, go to another country. And should India extradite Sheikh Hasina? 79% of our viewers say no. No, no question of extradition. So I think that that's a telling poll. That's an overwhelming majority of Indians do not believe that Bangladesh is urging India to extradite Hasina is something that should be heeded. So I just thought that that was an important data point. But to Dr. Hassan's question, why did Vikram Misri go if we don't recognize Yunus, the Yunus regime as representative? What would you say in the end?
Barkha?
Could we unmute? Yeah, ma'am. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So I think the first. Oh no, please. I think General Ata Hasnain is speaking.
Sorry, General
Let me
Hasnain?
come in first. Yeah,
Yeah.
let me come in
Yeah.
at this moment. Simply for the reason, I think there's no absolutism in this. There's no question of us saying, okay, Bangladesh government no is persona non grata with us. We are working to a solution. We are looking at a potential solution and improvement of relationship, etc. We need not necessarily, in our understanding, in our perception, we don't consider this to be a democratically elected government. It's not a democratically elected government. But at the same time, we consider it, legally constituted enough with whom we can do business in terms of improving our relationship as such. But in the overall scheme of things, we would like a democratically elected government in Bangladesh.
Okay. Let me give the last word to Ambassador Sikri now. Go ahead, ma'am. What next?
Yeah, well, I
Should
was. Let me talk about the first point about Vikram Rishi's visit. We have
yes.
always said we will deal with the government of the day. And let us say, even though this government is sworn in on a constitution which doesn't have a provision for interim government, even so, when there was a provision, all that this caretaker government is supposed to do is 90 days, maintain law and order, and hold free and fair and inclusive elections. Now, if this government had gone down that road and said, all right, we are here, whatever improperly, properly, whatever it may be, we are going to have elections within 90 days. But exact opposite has happened. They are delaying it. They were talking in the beginning of 5-6 years. And now under pressure from the world community and from within their own country, within the people of Bangladesh, we have the BNP and so many other parties talking about free, fair and inclusive elections. And in fact, this regime in Bangladesh even tried to depose the president. Again, by democracy, by surrounding him and trying to get him to go. But nobody came out. The kind of students that we saw on the 5th of August, they were no longer there. There's no support for this government. And in the end, the BNP itself said, no, please don't. The president is our only constitutional link. And if we don't have a president, there will be complete constitutional crisis in Bangladesh. So the people of Bangladesh are saying this. We have to respect what the people of Bangladesh are saying. So I think I agree that early elections are the only answer. But I do not agree with Dr. Mubashar Hussain when he thinks that there is no Islamism in Bangladesh. I think you should know that the Shias and the Ahmadiyas have been equally strongly under attack. Every dargah, every Sufi shrine is under attack. It's being burnt. So there is absolutely no doubt that moderate Islam is under severe attack in Bangladesh. We have a situation there where the advisor to the government of Bangladesh, one of the people who's been sworn in, has putting out tweets talking about civil war, putting out tweets talking about a khilafat, about having a caliphate in Bangladesh. We know all this. So if that is not a cause to worry, then I fully agree with what Gen Ata Hasnain has said. It is a matter of major security concern and worry for us when Pakistan is only recognizing Bangladesh on their terms, which is as a religious ideological friend and nothing else. And so they want this Prince movement on India that they always were planning. I know it existed. You're right that General Ata Hasnain is absolutely right that Pakistan never left Bangladesh. When I was High Commissioner there and there was a BNP government, this is what was happening. Every terrorist attack in India in those years had a Bangladeshi footprint. The people would come from Pakistan, land in Dhaka, and then walk into India and do what they had to do or what they had come to do. So this is absolutely a very serious situation. We have to recognize that this is an existential crisis for Bangladesh. I think the people of Bangladesh are terming it as an existential crisis for themselves. I don't think they want a religious caliphate as their government. They've never wanted it. They have always struggled against it. The values of the liberation war of 1971, which included democracy, there is no sign of democracy right now, which included, secularism, there is no sign of secularism right now.
Ambassador Sikri, Dr. Hassan wants to clarify. He just posted a message in the chat. I did not say there's no Islamism in Bangladesh. I said there's no one kind of Islamism. There are multiple strains of Islamism.
I noted that. I noted that what he said, but I'm saying that the moderate forms of Islamism are under threat. And there's only the multifarious, absolutely radical fundamentalist forms of Islamism that have got the upper hand. I agree there is no agreement among them. I agree that Jamaat Islami may not agree with Islami Andolan Bangladesh. I know about all those internecine quarrels. But basically, it's only the radical groups fighting among each other, which is very dangerous. And the chances of, all these illegal Bangladeshi immigrants in India and them being used, and the sleeper cell, you do know that recently 8 or 9 terrorists were caught in Kerala. They'd been in Bengal, they'd been in Assam, and then they were caught in Kerala. And one among them was a Bangladeshi. And he said, I have come to awaken the sleeper cells. And, to create chaos in India. So we do know this is already happening, Barkha, and I fully agree. I share the sensibilities of your panel, which have said that 80% are saying that, Sheikh Hasina should not be extradited because all they want is for her to go back. They'll put her in jail and do terrible things to her and then ban the Awami League. And the Awami League has a 40%, 50% vote share. Jatiyo Party. Mohd Yunus held a national unity meeting in Bangladesh a week or 10 days ago. He didn't invite the Awami League. He didn't invite the Jatiyo Party. So he's doing exactly what he's accusing Sheikh Hasina of having done. Enforced disappearances, journalists in jail, press accreditation cancelled, media being totally gagged. Nobody knows what is going on in the country, and telling the West as though everything is okay. It's not okay. I mean, I don't think that The Economist, by naming the Bangladesh as the country of the year, has dented its own credibility so much that I think it's going to take them 10 years to recover from it. We already were in great doubt about the credibility of The Economist, depending on what they're writing. But to have them come up with this conclusion, I mean, this really is OTT. I mean, it's really amazing.
Okay. On that note, we'll debate The Economist and the Western understanding of our part of the world in another program. But just again to reiterate, 80% of respondents in a poll run by us say the Modi government should not extradite Sheikh Hasina. But it is a critical time for India's security interests, with Pakistan cozying up, trying to fill this vacuum that has been created with the ouster of Hasina, and friction-filled equation between India and Bangladesh, with Yunus at the helm and no sign of immediate elections. Ambassador Sikri, General Hasnain, Dr. Hassan, always a pleasure. Thank you, and see you all soon. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.